This year, the Royal Canadian Air Force marks its 100th anniversary. The RCAF story is a remarkable journey about people, aircraft, and innovation, beginning with those who dared to touch the horizon before 1924. Some of the top flying aces of the First World War were Canadian pilots who flew with the British Flying Services. These recipients of the highest awards for gallantry set the mold of distinction for future Canadian aviators. One of them stood alone, Lieutenant William Barker. Born in Manitoba, he entered the Great War as a soldier. Serving in the trenches, he transferred to the Royal Flying Corps, becoming an ace pilot.
Well, Mother, we are down to the hard stuff now. Lieutenant Burleigh, who I fly with, was killed yesterday. I was in the air at the time and saw the fight. 4 Germans attacked and killed him instantly. I immediately dived and shot one down, but too late, for I saw him crash to earth. It made me sick. I'd agreed only days ago that if anything happened, I would write his mother. This I knew now. Love for all, your son.
6 years later, back in Canada, and now a wing commander, with a Victoria Cross and 11 additional medals for bravery, Will Barker became the first commander of the newly created Royal Canadian Air Force on April 1st, 1924. Granted the royal title by King George V, the RCAF modeled itself on the British Royal Air Force, adopting its motto, "Through adversity to the stars." The RCAF went on to play a key role in the Allied victory in the Second World War. It did so with its own multinational gender-breaking flair as it quietly encouraged foreigners and women into its ranks. The first invisible minorities came from south of the border. Before the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, Americans spoiling for a fight looked across their northern horizon and enlisted with their Canadian brothers and sisters to fly together as members of the Eagle Squadron. Special recognition must go to the unsung heroine who was the first female aircraft designer in the world, Elsie McGill, Queen of the Hurricanes, who was charged with redesigning, building, and mass-producing the RCAF's Hurricane fighter. Elsie was the first woman to earn an aeronautical engineering degree.
My presence in the University of Toronto's engineering classes certainly turned a few heads. Although I never learned to fly myself, I accompanied the pilots on all their test flights.
Elsie's team produced over 2,000 fighter planes that flew in combat operations overseas. From a fledgling force of 4,000 airmen in 1939, the RCAF swelled to a modern military strike force. At its peak, the RCAF saw 215,000 airmen and 17,000 airwomen in its ranks. By 1945, more than 18,000 RCAF aviators gave their lives for our freedom, the vast majority flying with Bomber Command over the skies of Europe. Heroes, including Victoria Cross recipients Andrew Minarski, Robert Hampton Gray, and Billy Bishop. The RCAF's most successful flying ace of the war, Squadron Leader George Buzz Burleigh. And finally, Squadron Leader Leonard Burchell, the savior of Ceylon, who was shot down and became a Japanese prisoner of war, saving hundreds of fellow prisoners from certain death. May their memory and deeds live on.
Every decision you make, from what you eat to what you do with your time tonight, turns you into who you are tomorrow.
In 2022, the RCAF gave life to its own motto when it created 3 Canadian Space Division. This is the RCAF story, and this is what thrusts Canada's Air Force into its 2nd century.